Hey guys, Curtis from Cutting Edge Engineering. Today's job we have a 637G bail arm in for repair. A 637G is a scraper. It is a twin powered scraper, so engine in the front, engine in the back. They are commonly used for removing massive amounts of material very quickly. The bail arm is mounted on the front of a scraper and it is used to hook up to the scraper in front of them so they can assist each other while pulling themselves or pushing themselves through a cut to remove material. Typically a bail arm are in one piece. This one came to us in 3 pieces and slightly bent. So it's not uncommon for these to get broken. They do take a hell of a flogging while they are working. I believe this one was down and he ran into the scraper in front of him. And what tells me that is the hollow bars down either side of the bail arm are all bent downwards. So we're going to put this one back together. Something I did notice when this arrived, it has been repaired before. There are a few telltale signs. The hollow bar is not the correct thickness. It should be a lot thicker than that, and you can tell that because there is an alignment peg down the inside of the castings that are used to build these that suits the correct size hollow bar. And at the moment there's about a 10mm gap around the peg on the ends of the bail arm. That tells me someone's done this before. They didn't put thick enough hollow bar in there, which would have led to its failure because these take an absolute hiding. One of the other things I did notice is the welds are not uniform. There is a weave style weld used. They don't look right and they are quite bulgy in areas. Genuine ones from the factory, they're pretty well perfect. And one of the other things that sort of gives it away is on the inside of these stop plates, there is generally a weld from the bottom plate onto the tube. You can see down in here that weld used to be there, and someone has obviously removed those stop plates, ground it off, and never welded it back up. It's not super important you weld them, but the factory does it, and when you see that you have a bail arm that doesn't have them, it means it's been repaired at some stage of its life. Also, it looks like it has been cracked before it did fail, and someone did attempt to weld that up because we found some welding wire that's gone through a joint, and then it's arced out on the inside and it's left the wire hanging there. So the first thing I need to do, I need to set these up and gouge off all the damaged material and then salvage all the parts we're going to reuse to put it back together. And for those of you who are wondering why we just don't replace this or the customer doesn't go buy a brand new part, this part as a reman component from a parts supplier is going to cost you between $16,000 and $19,000. We will do this repair for less than half of that price, and the customer will get back a near genuine part for a fraction of the price. Some of you may have noticed I am standing in the shade, and that is because we have our container igloo up. This will be the first time we're under the container shelter doing a job. So keep your eye out for a video where I put all this together. But now let's get started on this repair. In case you're wondering what happened to my workbench, well, it was a Saturday morning. I needed some 20mm plate. I knew I had a 20mm workbench, so I cut the pieces out of it that I needed. So it's a bit flimsy at the moment, but I will end up buying a new bit of plate to build another workbench for out here. So the way we're going to be removing all the material in order to clean up the parts, we'll be using our air arc gouger. So that's our Lincoln DC 400 power source through our arc air handpiece and a variety of 10mm gouging carbons and flat gouging carbons for doing the final cleanup before they get ground. Air arc gouging is always my preferred method of metal removal for a job like this. I do have to go quite deep into the root of the joint in order to get the piece of hollow bar off the casting. My entire gouging setup cost me less than $1,000, where a plasma cutter big enough to do this job is many thousands of dollars, and I don't really see where it's going to improve on speed or finish. Where air arc gouging, it's very controllable. It is the fastest method to remove material and prep while you're going. Air arc gouging is my preferred method of doing this job. Righto, so we've successfully removed the first broken piece of hollow bar. I did have to do a bit of extra work cleaning this up because the weld that someone had put back in there had a lot of pockets of slag in it, so there was a lot of slag inclusion within the weld. You do need to remove that before you try and weld back to that material, because if you don't, that is just going to be an area where a crack can start to form and eventually the joint will fail. Everything's prepped up really well at the moment. I just need to give that a quick grind and that part of the bail arm will be ready for assembly. So I've got the first one, all the materials gouged off, I've got that prepped for weld, so we're going to get started on the other side. So we've got those two ends gouged and prepped. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to gouge the stop plates off the old hollow bars, so while they're standing up, it's a lot easier to just blow the material out rather than trying to do them overhead while they were still connected onto those cast ends. So I've got two of those to do, and then we're going to get on to doing the main piece. Those of you who might have noticed, when I strike my arc on the inside of the job, the idea behind that is to get the end of the rod red hot so then I can burn through the paint and start gouging. If you were just to try and gouge on top of paint, it doesn't work. You need to burn it out of the way. So that's why I start the rod somewhere else where it's clean material, and then I burn through the painted surface. Now that it's up on the bench, you can really have a good look and see the extent of what actually happened to this and someone's failed repair. Down inside this tube there is a crack, and you can see a lot of welding wire hanging around in there, not connected to anything. So it looks like that's where the failure happened to begin with. If things are going to be repaired, you need to do them properly. They did a half-assed job in fixing it, and the end result is it broke in half. The first thing I need to do, I need to gouge the weld out that holds these sleeves on over the hollow bar. So the sleeves are there to help support the weld joint. So we'll gouge that weld out, remove the sleeves, and then we can gouge the hollow bar from the actual nose of the baler. So I'm not going to get that sleeve off the end of that hollow bar because it does have a bend in it. I'm just going to gouge out the weld that holds that bit of hollow bar onto the main part of the bail arm. Once I get that off, I'll then hammer that sleeve back off the other way. So start gouging that weld out. Righto guys, so all the prep work is now done. So I've got my 2 sleeves, the 2 support plates, I've got the nose of the bail arm and the 2 bail arm ends. I'll get these on a pallet, take them into the workshop. Before I do any reassembly, I need to straighten one of the ears of the bar end. Right, so we've got the end set up, but before I try and straighten it, I do need to remove the bearing. We can either cut it out with a gas axe or we can press it out. The difficult part about pressing them out is you can't actually physically get anything to the cage of the bearing to push on that, so you are pushing on the ball, which is not usually recommended, but with any luck this will just pop straight out without damaging the bearing. So I'm really glad that worked out as well as it did. I didn't want to have to cut that bearing out, and the reason for that is there aren't any available at the moment. That is a genuine bearing, so if it didn't survive we would have had to buy an aftermarket, which I'm not really for because the aftermarket bearings for bail arms, they're not a very good quality. That bearing's going to go again because it's completely round, there's nothing wrong with it, so I'm happy I saved it. And now we need to flip this over, set it back up in the press and straighten out that bent ear. Right, I think we're good. Okay, so that went really well. Everything came back nice and straight again. A good way to tell if you've got things pretty close to where they used to be is the diameter of the hole. The hole now should be about 100 mil across it. It's actually measured out pretty close to 100 mil, so I'm really happy with that. It will still need to be line bored. I did expect to have to line bore this, so we will end up doing it anyway, just to make it a nice, neat, snug fit for the bearing. So while that's cooling down, we're gonna get the rest of the parts set up in the jig.
Ready? Let's go. Go in the car. Go in the car. Ready? Sit. Oh. Stay.
Righto guys, so I've got everything set up in the jig now. I did put a piece of material across the top of the two castings and clamp that down so everything's held nice and tight, and then I can go through and just make fine adjustments. I've got the centers on where the bar ends have to be. I have the heights and everything set. Now that that's done, we'll get the lengths for our hollow bars, we'll get them cut and take them over the lathe. Righto guys, we've cut our two pieces of hollow bar we're going to use for the two replacement tubes on the bail arm. The size of the material I have is 140 by 80, but it does measure out. The ID is 75mm and the OD is about 143. So I don't know if it's all around the world, but here in Australia, if we buy something 80 by 140, it will be oversized on the OD and then undersized on the ID. That way it is going to guarantee clean up to its size that you have purchased. Now that they're cut, we're going to take them over the lathe and reduce the outer diameter to suit our sleeves. Righto guys, so we've got all of our parts prepped. I've got my 2 new hollow bars made, so stay tuned for part 2 where we put all this back together and do the line boring in the eye that was bent. Thanks for watching. This is one of those half-assed jobs. It's like someone grabbed a bird that shit's wire. Because it's not... Oh, hang on. Fuck. Righto, so we've got those 2 ends cleaned up. They are prepped, ready to be put in the jig. Fuck. Righto, so we... Wait, what? One of them what? You ready?
Yep.
Wait, how'd you start that? Oh. Fuck off, Dave. Right, you ready? Fuck no.
That's good.
It's too bright.
Go on. Up you get. Go on.